The wind screamed across Kepler 452b's desolate surface, a constant reminder of the planet's hostility. Dr. Elena Rodriguez adjusted her environmental suit's seals, her fingers moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who had spent more years in alien environments than on Earth. The suit's heads-up display flickered. Oxygen level stable, radiation within tolerable limits, external temperature hovering at a brutal -43 degrees Celsius. "Incoming storm system," growled Jack Thompson, the mission's chief of security. His massive frame was a testament to the enhanced physiology developed for extended planetary exploration. "We've got maybe 3 hours before we're locked down in base camp." Elena ignored him, her attention fixed on the massive anomaly emerging from the planet's rust-colored bedrock. Geological scans had initially dismissed it as a natural formation, but something about its geometric precision defied natural explanation. The structure rose at a perfect 37-degree angle, its surface a complex lattice of crystalline material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Marcus," she called into her comm unit, "are you getting these quantum signature readings?" From the mobile research lab 50 meters away, Marcus Chen's voice crackled back. His tone was a mixture of exhaustion and barely contained excitement. "It's impossible. These quantum fluctuations shouldn't exist. The mathematical models we're seeing, they're not just complex. They're alive." The research team represented humanity's most diverse and brilliant minds. 12 researchers from 6 different countries, each bringing the specialized skill set that made them unique. There was Jack Thompson, ex-military turned planetary security specialist. Dr. Yuki Nakamura, the team's lead xenogeologist, whose theories about interstellar artifact formation had been both celebrated and ridiculed by the scientific community. Dr. Aisha Khan, a quantum linguist who believed communication could exist beyond traditional linguistic boundaries. And then there was Marcus Chen, a man who didn't quite fit any traditional scientific mold. Once a world-renowned composer, he had abandoned his musical career after a controversial performance that was said to have caused mass hallucinations among its audience. Now he applied his understanding of complex harmonic structures to xenolinguistic research, a field that most traditional scientists considered borderline mystical. Elena's augmented reality display began to glitch. Quantum interference patterns danced across her vision. Fractal designs that seemed to pulse with an almost organic rhythm. She blinked, and for a moment, she could have sworn the artifact's surface moved. "Base, we're detecting multiple anomalies," she reported, her voice professional despite the growing sense of unease. "The structural composition is changing. Microscopic shifts are occurring faster than our sensors can track." Dr. Nakamura's voice cut in, her Japanese accent sharp with academic intensity. "Impossible. Crystalline structures don't just change." But this one was. Jack moved closer, his enhanced combat suit powering up defensive protocols. "Rodriguez, we should pull back. This isn't natural." Elena knew what was at stake. This mission was her redemption, her chance to prove that the scientific controversy that had nearly destroyed her career was nothing more than small-minded institutional thinking. 5 years ago, her research into quantum communication had been dismissed as fantasy. Now, standing before this impossible artifact, she felt vindication within reach. Marcus's voice grew more urgent. "Elena, the quantum signatures, they're forming a pattern. But it's not like any mathematical sequence I've ever seen. It's more like a musical composition." A sudden tremor ran through the ground, not violent, but deliberate, as if something beneath the surface was taking a breath. "Everyone hold position," Elena commanded, her hand instinctively touching the specialized recording device at her belt. Whatever was happening, she was determined to capture every millisecond. The artifact began to rise. Not through mechanical means, not through any form of technological manipulation that anyone could comprehend. It simply emerged from the planet's surface, displacing geological layers that should have required massive energy expenditure. And then, for just a moment, everything went silent. Jack's combat systems died. Communication arrays went dark. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Elena Rodriguez stood perfectly still, watching as an ancient technology beyond human comprehension began to awaken. They had no idea what was coming. The base's emergency generators hummed with a desperate rhythm, casting sickly green light across faces etched with a mixture of fear and wild anticipation. Marcus Chen stood before a makeshift lab setup, his fingers trembling slightly as he adjusted a series of quantum resonance amplifiers. Devices so experimental they existed more in theoretical papers than in practical application. 3 minutes of exposure caused neural feedback in the last test, Dr. Aisha Khan muttered, reviewing the medical scans. Her dark eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, pupils dilated from stims that kept her functioning well past human endurance. Synaptic disruption, temporary cortical remapping. It's like the artifact is communicating through neurological interference. Elena Rodriguez leaned over the data, her professional composure barely masking a rising excitement. The artifact, now partially extracted and contained in a quantum-dampening chamber, pulsed with an inner light that seemed to breathe. Not mechanical, not quite alive. Something in between. Jack Thompson paced the perimeter, his enhanced combat suit's systems still recovering from the earlier blackout. We're sitting on something that just shut down military-grade electronics like they were cheap toys, he growled. And you want to what? Play music at it? Marcus didn't look up. His fingers danced across a custom-built interface that merged musical composition software with quantum linguistic algorithms. Not just music, he corrected. A conversation. Every musical composition is a form of communication. Mathematics. Emotion. Language. The story of Marcus's fall from grace was legendary in certain circles. 5 years ago, he'd composed a piece, Quantum Requiem, that was performed simultaneously in Tokyo, New York, and Sao Paulo. Audience reports spoke of shared hallucinations, spontaneous emotional synchronization, neural patterns that seemed to link thousands of listeners in a moment of collective consciousness. The scientific community had labeled it a mass hysteria event. Military intelligence had classified the entire performance. Now, he was attempting something far more dangerous. Resonance frequency is stabilizing. Yuki Nakamura called out, her voice a study in scientific calm. Holographic displays around her flickered with complex geometric patterns that mapped the artifact's quantum signature. The crystalline structure is responding to harmonic input, but it's not like any material we've ever encountered. Marcus began to play. It wasn't music in any traditional sense. His fingers moved across quantum interfaces that translated emotional and mathematical constructs into sound waves, light frequencies, quantum vibrations. Each note was a complex algorithm, each chord a potential linguistic structure. The first response was subtle. A hairline fracture in the quantum dampening chamber's display. A momentary quantum interference pattern that looked almost like a smile. Jesus, Jack muttered. It's listening. Elena's hand found Marcus's shoulder. Not a romantic gesture. A connection of shared scientific passion. Keep going, she whispered. The composition grew more complex. Marcus drew from his most controversial work, the techniques that had nearly destroyed his previous career. Quantum entanglement translated into sound. Emotional states mapped as mathematical progressions. He was speaking a language that had no words, only pure information. The artifact began to respond. Quantum fluctuations increased. The chamber's containment field started to destabilize. Dr. Khan's medical monitors went wild. Researchers began experiencing shared sensory hallucinations, glimpses of impossible geometries, fractured memories that didn't seem to belong to anyone in the room. Shut down protocols, Jack shouted, reaching for emergency kill switches. But no one was listening. Marcus's composition had become something else entirely. A living thing. A communication that transcended human understanding. The artifact was responding, not just to the sound, but to the emotional complexity behind the sound. The doubt, the passion, the relentless human drive to understand. Blood began to trickle from the researchers' noses. The quantum chamber's walls started to liquefy. And for just a moment, they all saw the same thing. A civilization's final moments. An alien race so logically perfect that they had engineered their own extinction. A weapon designed to find a species capable of true creativity. A test. And humanity was about to take its first step. The United Nations Emergency Scientific Council chamber buzzed with a tension that threatened to shatter diplomatic niceties. Holographic displays flickered with classified images from the Kepler 452 bits expedition, quantum readings that defied every known law of physics, fragments of alien memories that leaked like toxic dreams. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a storm she had both created and barely understood. "The artifact is not a communication device," she stated, her voice cutting through the cacophony of scientific and political arguments. "It's a weapon system that responds to emotional complexity, something no known intelligent species has ever conceived." To her left, Dr. Alejandro Voss, director of Global Xenotechnology Research, looked like he was about to have an aneurysm. "Rodriguez, you're suggesting that our most advanced quantum researchers are less capable of understanding this technology than a composer who once caused a mass hallucination event." Marcus Chen, standing quietly in the corner, allowed himself a slight smile. The same smile that had infuriated academic review boards and fascinated underground research communities. The holographic display shifted, showing fragments of the alien civilization's final moments. Not through traditional data, but through emotional resonance, flickering images that were felt more than seen. A race of beings so perfectly logical that they had engineered their own extinction, creating a weapon system that could only be activated by a species capable of transcending pure rationality. "Look," Marcus interjected, his fingers dancing across a quantum interface. Their civilization was a perfect mathematical construct. No variance. No creativity. They designed this artifact as a final test, a method to identify a species capable of true adaptive intelligence. Dr. Aisha Khan stepped forward, her research compiling the neurological data from the expedition. The quantum signatures suggest more than communication. It's a cultural archive and a weapon system combined. But its activation requires something beyond traditional computational methods. The political representatives shifted uncomfortably. Military strategists, tech billionaires, xenobiological researchers, each saw the artifact as a potential salvation or apocalyptic threat. General Catherine Rodriguez, no relation to Elena, spoke with the crisp efficiency of someone used to solving problems through direct action. "If this is a weapon, we need to understand its deployment mechanism. Immediately." "That's the point," Elena said, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and mourning. "It's not a weapon in any traditional sense. It responds to emotional and creative complexity. Our attempts to analyze it through pure logic have failed. It requires something more human." The room fell silent. Marcus began to play. Not with an instrument. Not with traditional sound. His quantum interface translated emotional states into mathematical progressions, creating a language that existed between sound, light, and pure information. The holographic displays began to shift, alien memories unfolding like living paintings. Scenes of the alien civilization emerged, a species so mathematically perfect that they had eliminated all forms of creative deviation. Their cities were geometric perfection. Their social structures pure algorithmic efficiency, and in their pursuit of absolute logical progression, they had engineered their own cultural and biological death. The artifact was their final creation. A test. A challenge launched into the universe. Find us a species worthy of our legacy. Find something capable of true creativity. "My God," whispered General Rodriguez, "they're looking for us to be different." Political representatives began to argue. Military strategists demanded containment protocols. But Elena and Marcus understood something profound. This was more than a technological discovery. This was a fundamental challenge to understanding intelligence itself. Creativity, Marcus said softly, is the most dangerous weapon in the universe. The holographic displays continued to shift. Alien memories merged with human perception. Mathematical progressions danced with emotional complexity. And somewhere, in the vast darkness between stars, something ancient and waiting began to stir. Humanity had just been invited to a test it didn't yet understand. And failure was not an option. The underground research facility hummed with a tension that felt like a living thing. Buried 3 kilometers beneath the Antarctic ice, Project Resonance was humanity's most classified endeavor. A desperate attempt to understand the artifact's potential before it could be weaponized, controlled, or destroyed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez moved between quantum interfaces that looked more like musical instruments than scientific equipment. Marcus Chen stood beside her, his fingers hovering over holographic displays that translated emotional states into complex mathematical progressions. "We're mapping emotional states as computational language," Marcus explained to Dr. Yuki Nakamura, who watched with a mixture of scientific skepticism and barely contained excitement. Each creative act is a form of programming, not just communication, but direct quantum manipulation. The facility was a testament to human adaptability. Researchers from 52 different nations worked in shifts, each bringing unique cultural perspectives. Artists worked alongside quantum physicists. Musicians collaborated with neural engineers. Poets sat next to mathematical theorists. A warning klaxon cut through the air. "Quantum signature instability detected," the AI system announced. Its voice was deliberately modulated, a hybrid of multiple human linguistic patterns designed to be both calming and authoritative. Elena's augmented contact lenses flickered with incoming data. Microscopic changes were occurring faster than their most advanced sensors could track. The artifact, or rather, the partial quantum reconstruction they'd been studying, was responding to something. "It's not just responding to our inputs," Yuki muttered. "It's anticipating them." A saboteur's movement triggered the first catastrophic event. Dr. Konstantin Volkov, a brilliant Russian quantum engineer with connections to multiple international research agencies, made his move. His specialized quantum disruptor was designed to fragment the artifact's quantum signature, hoping to render it inert and sellable to the highest bidder. Marcus saw him first. Time seemed to slow. The quantum interfaces began to sing. Not with sound, not with traditional frequencies, but with a language that existed between emotion, mathematics, and pure potential. The artifact's quantum reconstruction began to expand, consuming Volkov's disruptor in a cascade of impossible geometries. The explosion was both everywhere and nowhere. Half the research facility vanished in a quantum event that defied traditional physics. Walls liquefied. Quantum signatures transformed. For a brief moment, researchers experienced multiple potential realities simultaneously. When the event subsided, only 3 things remained constant. Marcus Chen was still standing. The quantum reconstruction of the artifact had dramatically expanded. Humanity had just witnessed its first true glimpse of the technology's potential. "My God," Elena whispered, her augmented vision struggling to process the transformed space. "It's learning." The artifact's quantum signature now contained fragments of human emotional states. The sabotage attempt hadn't destroyed the technology. It had fed it, integrated it, transformed it. Dr. Aisha Khan's neural monitoring systems went wild. Researchers who had been near the explosion began to exhibit extraordinary cognitive abilities, enhanced pattern recognition, momentary synesthetic experiences, the ability to perceive quantum fluctuations that previously existed beyond human perception. Jack Thompson, the mission's security chief, looked like he was about to draw his weapon. "Rodriguez, tell me what the hell just happened." Marcus turned, his eyes reflecting quantum patterns that seemed to dance between mathematical precision and pure emotional chaos. "We just had our first conversation," he said softly, "and the artifact is starting to understand us." The transformed research space, looked like a fusion of technological marvel and living art. Quantum interfaces pulsed with colors that shouldn't exist. Mathematical progressions formed living sculptures. Emotional states became tangible, three-dimensional constructs. Humanity had done more than study an alien artifact. They had begun to communicate with something beyond their comprehension. And the conversation was just beginning. The first warning came as a quantum ripple, a disturbance so subtle that only the most advanced human sensors could detect it. "Incoming," Dr. Aisha Khan whispered, her voice a mixture of scientific fascination and primal fear. The Carracks arrived like a mathematical nightmare made manifest. Their fleet consisted of ships that were less vessels and more living equations, geometric configurations that shifted and realigned with perfect computational precision. Each vessel was a weapon, each movement a calculated progression that defied traditional concepts of space and movement. Jack Thompson's enhanced combat systems went into overdrive. "Tactical analysis shows nothing in our database," he growled, his augmented vision struggling to track the Carrack ships. "They're not just advanced. They're fundamentally different." Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of humanity's most advanced defensive position. The Antarctic Research Facility had been transformed, no longer just a scientific outpost, but a quantum fortress that pulsed with the artifact's growing intelligence. "They're not here to negotiate," Marcus Chen said, his fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that now seemed to breathe with a life of their own. "They're here to eradicate the potential threat." The Carracks were a civilization that had evolved beyond biological limitations, pure computational entities that had long ago abandoned physical form. They moved through the universe like a perfect algorithm, eliminating any potential source of unpredictability. And humanity, with its messy creativity and emotional complexity, represented the ultimate threat. The first attack came as a mathematical weapon, a quantum cascade that should have instantly fragmented every human system. Computational warfare designed to dissolve technological infrastructure at the most fundamental level. But the artifact had other plans. Where the Carracks expected predictability, they found chaos. The quantum interfaces that Marcus and Elena had developed began to sing, not with sound, but with a language that existed between emotion, mathematics, and pure potential. The research facility's defensive systems transformed, becoming something that was simultaneously a weapon, a communication method, and a living work of art. Carrack ships found themselves caught in quantum resonance patterns that defied their computational models. Defensive systems that should have been impenetrable became fluid, adaptive. The very concept of attack and defense blurred. "They can't understand us," Elena realized, watching the battle unfold. Their entire civilization is based on perfect predictability, and we're anything but predictable. Marcus's quantum composition became a weapon. Each mathematical progression was a defensive stroke, each emotional undercurrent a tactical maneuver. The artifact resonated with human creativity, transforming the very fabric of local spacetime. Dr. Yuki Nakamura's geological sensors went wild. The Antarctic landscape began to shift, quantum fluctuations creating defensive structures that were part technology, part living art. Fractal mountain ranges rose. Quantum shields formed from mathematical progressions that changed with each passing moment. The Carracks had studied humanity for centuries. They understood technological progression. They had mapped human computational capabilities. They believed they could predict and eliminate any potential threat. They were wrong. Jack Thompson launched a counterattack that was pure human improvisation. Enhanced combat suits became quantum conduits. Military training merged with artistic expression. Each defensive movement was a creative act that rewrote the rules of engagement. "They're trying to solve us," Marcus said, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and artistic passion. "But we're not a problem to be solved. We're a conversation to be understood." Carrack ships began to fragment, not through traditional weapon systems, but through a method of combat that represented the pinnacle of human potential. Destruction and creation became indistinguishable. As the battle reached its crescendo, Elena understood the artifact's true purpose. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a test, a challenge launched into the universe to find a species capable of transcending pure logic. And humanity was proving itself worthy. The quantum battlefield became a living canvas. Mathematical progressions danced. Emotional states became tactical maneuvers. The line between defense and art disappeared completely. The Carracks had come to eliminate a potential threat. They would leave understanding that humanity was something far more dangerous, a species that could turn destruction into a form of creation. The quantum battlefield transformed into a living composition. Marcus Chen stood at the epicenter, no longer just a scientist or a composer, but something entirely new. His fingers moved across interfaces that were part musical instrument, part weapon system, part living neural network. Each movement was a mathematical progression, each breath an emotional input that rewrote the very fabric of reality. "We're not fighting," he said to Elena, his voice barely a whisper. "We're communicating." The remaining Carrack's fleet found themselves trapped in a performance they could not comprehend. What began as a military engagement had become a multi-dimensional artistic expression, a battle conducted through quantum harmonies that shifted between destruction and creation with each passing moment. Dr. Aisha Khan's neural monitoring systems were pushed beyond their design limits. Researchers who had been exposed to the artifact's quantum field began to exhibit capabilities that defied scientific understanding. Synesthetic experiences merged with computational thinking. Emotional states became tactical algorithms. "They're trying to solve us like an equation," Elena observed, her augmented vision tracking the Carrack's fleet's computational attempts to break down their defensive systems. "But we're not a problem to be solved. We're a conversation." Jack Thompson's enhanced combat suit had become something else entirely. Traditional military training merged with quantum responsiveness. Each movement was simultaneously a defensive stroke and an artistic expression. His suit responded to emotional states, transforming its configuration faster than any computational system could predict. The artifact pulsed at the center of the engagement, no longer just a technological object, but a living interface that amplified human potential. It was collecting, processing, understanding. Marcus began to compose. But this was no ordinary composition. Each note was a quantum weapon, each harmonic progression a defensive configuration. The music existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, a language that spoke through mathematical precision, emotional complexity, and pure creative potential. Carrack's ships found themselves caught in quantum resonance patterns that defied their most advanced computational models. Defensive systems liquefied. Weapon configurations transformed into living art. The very concept of attack and defense became fluid. "They studied our technology," Elena said, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and artistic passion. "But they never understood our spirit." The battlefield became a canvas. Quantum shields formed fractal patterns that were simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Defensive systems shifted with emotional complexity. Each moment was a living composition that rewrote the rules of engagement. Dr. Yuki Nakamura's geological sensors detected impossible transformations. The quantum field generated by the artifact and humanity's collective creativity began to reshape local space-time. Mountain ranges formed and dissolved. Quantum barriers became living sculptures that breathe with mathematical precision. "We're not just defending," Marcus said, his fingers moving with impossible speed across the quantum interfaces. "We're creating a language they've never encountered." The Carrack's fleet began to fragment. Not through traditional weapon systems, not through computational destruction, but through a method of combat that was simultaneously a performance, a communication, and a work of art. Jack Thompson launched a counterattack that was pure human improvisation. His enhanced combat suit became a quantum conduit. Military training merged with artistic expression. Each movement was a creative act that rewrote the rules of engagement. Emotional states became tactical algorithms. Artistic expression became a form of warfare. Destruction and creation became indistinguishable. As the battle reached its crescendo, Elena understood the artifact's true purpose. This wasn't just a weapon or a test. It was an invitation. A challenge launched into the universe to find a species capable of transcending pure logic. And humanity was proving itself worthy. The quantum battlefield became a living canvas. Mathematical progressions danced. Emotional states became tactical maneuvers. The line between defense and art disappeared completely. Marcus's final composition was both a weapon and a message, a declaration of humanity's potential, a symphony of destruction that was, at its core, an act of creation. The Carracks would leave understanding that they had encountered something far more dangerous than a technological threat. They had found a species that could turn the very concept of warfare into an art form. The universe became a canvas. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the apex of human potential, her body and mind integrated with quantum interfaces that blurred the line between technology and living art. Around her, a team of artists, musicians, mathematicians, and warriors conducted a performance that would redefine the concept of intelligent life. Marcus Chen had become something more than human. Not through technological augmentation, not through biological enhancement, but through a complete integration with the artifact's quantum potential. His body moved like a living algorithm, each gesture a complex mathematical progression that spoke in a language beyond words. "We're not just fighting," he called out, his voice resonating across multiple quantum frequencies. "We're communicating the entire human experience." The remaining Carrack's fleet found themselves trapped in a multi-dimensional engagement that defied every computational model in their extensive archives. What had begun as a military confrontation had transformed into a cosmic performance, a living composition that was simultaneously a weapon, a communication, and a profound artistic expression. Dr. Aisha Khan managed the Neural Interface Network, a system that connected the most creative minds humanity had ever produced. Artists, musicians, mathematicians, military strategists, quantum physicists. Each contributor added a unique voice to the collective performance. A painter in Sao Paulo contributed a color spectrum that became a defensive quantum barrier. A jazz musician in New Orleans improvised a rhythmic progression that destabilized Carrack's computational systems. A mathematically inclined street dancer in Mumbai translated her movement into tactical quantum fluctuations. The artifact amplified their collective creativity, transforming individual expressions into a unified planet-scale communication. Jack Thompson's combat team had become something entirely new. Enhanced soldiers moved with a synchronicity that transcended traditional military training. Each unit was simultaneously an individual and part of a collective consciousness, responding to the cosmic performance with a fluidity that was part dance, part warfare, part artistic expression. "They're trying to analyze us," Elena observed, her augmented vision tracking the Carrack's fleet's increasingly desperate computational attempts. "But we're not a problem to be solved. We're a living, breathing conversation." The quantum battlefield expanded. Local space-time began to respond to the collective human performance. Quantum barriers formed living sculptures. Defensive systems breathed with emotional complexity. Mathematical progressions danced across the fabric of reality. Dr. Yuki Nakamura's geological and quantum sensors detected transformations that should have been impossible. The collective human creativity, amplified by the artifact, was literally reshaping the fundamental laws of physics. Mountain ranges formed and dissolved. Quantum barriers became living art that pulsed with mathematical precision and emotional depth. Marcus's composition reached its crescendo. It was a performance that spoke the entire human story, from the first primitive tools to the most advanced technological achievements. Joy and pain, creation and destruction, love and conflict. Each moment was a quantum weapon, each emotion a tactical progression. The Carracks found themselves confronting something beyond their comprehension. A species that could turn warfare into art. A civilization that could transform destruction into a form of communication. An intelligence that existed between mathematical precision and pure emotional potential. "We are not what you expected." Marcus's voice resonated across quantum frequencies. "We are not a problem to be solved. We are a conversation to be understood." The final moments of the engagement became a living artwork. Quantum shields formed fractals that told stories of human resilience. Defensive systems moved with the grace of a planetary dance. Each moment was a testament to human creativity and adaptability. Elena understood the artifact's true purpose. This was more than a weapon, more than a test. It was an invitation, a challenge launched into the universe to find a species capable of transcending pure logic. And humanity was not just answering the challenge. They were rewriting the very concept of intelligent life. The cosmic performance reached its conclusion. The Carrack's fleet, once a symbol of computational perfection, now existed as a shattered reminder of the limitations of pure logic. Humanity had found its voice, a voice that was simultaneously a weapon, a work of art, and a profound communication with the universe itself. Silence descended. Not the absence of sound, but a profound quantum stillness that spoke volumes. The transformed landscape of Kepler 452 bits looked like a living memory, part battlefield, part artwork, part cosmic testament to human potential. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Marcus Chen stood at the epicenter of humanity's greatest transformation. The artifact, no longer just a technological object, but a living interface that had become part of human consciousness, pulsed with a light that was simultaneously ancient and newborn. Around them, the remnants of the Carrack's fleet existed as quantum echoes, frozen in a moment of complete comprehension. "We were never just fighting," Marcus said, his voice carrying multiple frequencies simultaneously. "We were communicating the entire human experience." Dr. Aisha Khan's neural monitoring systems revealed something unprecedented. The artifact had become more than a weapon or a test. It was a gateway, a bridge between humanity's potential and the vast, unknown intelligence of the universe. Researchers who had been exposed to the artifact's quantum field began to exhibit capabilities that redefined human potential. Synesthetic experiences merged with computational thinking. Emotional states became living algorithms. The line between individual and collective consciousness blurred. Jack Thompson, once a traditional military strategist, now moved with a fluidity that suggested he understood something fundamental about human potential. His enhanced combat systems had transformed into something that was part technology, part living art. They were looking for something specific, Elena observed, her augmented vision tracking the artifact's quantum signatures. A species capable of transcending pure logic, of turning destruction into creation. The global response was unlike anything in human history. Nations that had been historic enemies now collaborated with unprecedented unity. The scientific breakthrough had revealed something more profound than any technological advancement. Humanity's true strength lay in its capacity for collective creativity, emotional depth, and adaptive intelligence. Dr. Yuki Nakamura's quantum research revealed the artifact's deeper purpose. It was a cultural archive left by an ancient civilization, a challenge launched into the universe to find a species capable of true adaptive intelligence, a test that humanity had not just passed, but had completely reimagined. The artifact began to unfold, not as a weapon, not as a technological marvel, but as a living library of cosmic potential. Quantum interfaces revealed fragments of civilizations long lost, entire histories of species that had failed to evolve beyond their initial computational limitations, and at the center, a challenge that had waited millennia for a response. Marcus's final composition was both an ending and a beginning, a symphony that told the entire human story, from the first primitive tools to the most advanced technological achievements. Joy and pain, creation and destruction, love and conflict. Each moment a quantum progression that spoke to the universe's fundamental complexity. "We are not what you expected," the composition seemed to say. "We are a conversation waiting to be understood." The global scientific community watched in awe as the artifact transformed. Research facilities around the world began to receive quantum transmissions, not as data, but as living memories, artistic expressions, mathematical progressions that were simultaneously a communication and a work of art. Alina understood the profound implication. Humanity had been invited to join something larger than itself, not through technological superiority, not through military might, but through its capacity for emotional complexity, creative thinking, and adaptive intelligence. The Carrack's fleet, once a symbol of computational perfection, now existed as a testament to the limitations of pure logic. Their defeat was not a military victory, but a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could be. Jack Thompson looked out over the transformed landscape. "We're not just a species," he said softly. "We're a living conversation with the universe." As the quantum dust settled, humanity found itself at the beginning of something unprecedented. The artifact was no longer a mysterious object to be studied. It had become a bridge, an invitation to explore the vast, unknown potential of intelligent life. The universe had sent a challenge. Humanity had responded with a symphony, a declaration that true intelligence is not about solving problems. It's about creating conversations, about turning destruction into a form of creation, about finding beauty in the most unexpected places. And in that moment, everything changed.